One of the most misunderstood ideas about wealth is that it shows up in appearance. In reality, people who are truly financially secure often do the opposite of what you might expect. They don't look expensive, they look intentional, and there is a very important difference between the two. When someone looks expensive, it usually means their spending decisions are driven by external validation. They are trying to signal success through visible consumption, designer clothing, luxury cars, frequent upgrades, and a constant cycle of new purchases. But this behavior is often not a sign of wealth. In many cases, it is a sign of financial pressure masked by lifestyle choices. In contrast, people who are secretly wealthy operate differently. Their decisions are not driven by what others think, but by what actually aligns with their long-term financial goals. They don't buy things to prove anything. They buy things because those purchases serve a purpose, add genuine value, or fit within a well-planned financial structure. One of the clearest patterns here is low lifestyle inflation. As their income increases, their spending does not automatically rise with it. Instead of upgrading everything in their life at every income milestone, they pause and evaluate. Do they need a bigger house, or do they prefer financial freedom? Do they need a luxury car, or is reliability more valuable to them? These are not emotional decisions, they are strategic ones. This is where intentionality becomes visible. Their choices may seem simple on the surface, but they are actually very calculated. For example, they might drive a modest car, not because they cannot afford something better, but because they understand opportunity cost. Every rupee or dollar not spent on depreciation-heavy assets can be redirected into investments that generate future wealth. Another important aspect is that they often avoid financial noise. You won't see them constantly updating their wardrobe or chasing trends. Their style is usually consistent, neutral, and understated. This is not about being frugal for the sake of it. It is about reducing unnecessary decision fatigue and focusing energy on things that actually compound over time, like investments, skills, or business growth. There's also a psychological layer here. When someone is truly financially secure, they don't need external validation through possessions. Their confidence comes from knowing their net worth is growing in the background, not from the reaction they get when they enter a room. This is why their appearance can sometimes be misleading. They are not trying to stand out. They are trying to stay grounded. Ironically, this intentional simplicity often makes them harder to identify as wealthy. They don't broadcast status because they don't rely on it. Instead, they prioritize stability, flexibility, and long-term control over their finances. So the key shift in mindset is this. Wealth is not about how expensive you look. It is about how deliberately you make financial decisions. And those who understand this early often end up building wealth quietly, consistently, and sustainably, while others are still trying to look the part. One of the most reliable signs of someone who is quietly wealthy is that they are no longer relying on their own labor as their primary source of income. Instead, they have built systems where money itself starts to generate more money. In simple terms, their money works harder than they do. At the surface level, most people exchange time for money. You work an hour, you get paid for that hour. You work more hours, you earn more income. This model has an obvious limitation. Your time is finite. Even if you are highly paid, there is a ceiling to how much you can physically or mentally work. Wealthy individuals understand this early, and they shift their focus from active income to asset building. Instead of asking, how much can I earn this month? They begin asking, how can I create income that continues without my constant involvement? This is where investing becomes central. Quietly wealthy people tend to be consistent investors, not emotional ones. They don't try to time the market or chase hype. Instead, they focus on long-term compounding. Whether it's equities, index funds, real estate, or business ownership, the principle is the same. They are planting financial seeds that grow over time. What makes this powerful is not just the act of investing, but the discipline behind it. They invest regularly, often automatically, regardless of market conditions. This removes emotion from the process. While others wait for the perfect time, they understand that time in the market is more important than timing the market. Another layer of this is income diversification. Quiet wealth is rarely built on a single source of income. Instead, it often comes from multiple streams that operate independently. For example, a primary job may cover living expenses while investments generate passive returns. A side business may grow in the background. Rental income may provide stability. Each stream reduces dependency on the others. This structure creates resilience. If one income source slows down, others continue. And over time, these streams compound, meaning the total financial output grows even if the person is not actively increasing their working hours. There's also a mindset shift that happens here. People who build wealth this way stop thinking in terms of trading effort for money and start thinking in terms of building systems that produce money. They are not focused on short bursts of income. They are focused on long-term financial architecture. This is why their financial behavior often looks calm and consistent rather than reactive. They are not constantly chasing opportunities out of fear or urgency. Instead, they are steadily reinforcing systems that already work. And perhaps the most important part is this. They understand that money is a tool, not a finish line. The goal is not just to accumulate it, but to deploy it in a way that creates freedom. Freedom of time, freedom of choice, and freedom from financial pressure. So, when you observe someone who appears financially secure without showing obvious signs of luxury, what you are often seeing is this principle in action. Their money is not sitting idle. It is working quietly, consistently, and efficiently in the background, often far harder than they ever need to. One of the clearest yet least obvious signs of someone who is secretly wealthy is how they treat time. While most people spend a large portion of their energy trying to gain attention, validation, or recognition, quietly wealthy individuals tend to optimize for something far more valuable: time freedom. At a surface level, attention can feel rewarding. Being seen as successful, busy, or important often creates a sense of status. But the problem is that attention is external and temporary. It depends on other people noticing you, approving of you, or reacting to you. Time, on the other hand, is internal and finite. Once spent, it cannot be recovered or replaced. Wealthy individuals understand this trade-off deeply. That is why their decisions often look different from what you might expect. Instead of structuring their life around appearing productive or impressive, they structure it around preserving control over their hours and energy. One clear example is how they approach work and commitments. Rather than saying yes to everything that increases visibility, they become selective. They prioritize activities that either generate long-term value or give them greater flexibility in the future. If an opportunity demands too much time but offers only short-term recognition, they are likely to decline it. This is where the concept of time ROI becomes important. Instead of only evaluating financial return, they evaluate how much time a decision consumes versus how much freedom it creates later. A high-paying opportunity that demands constant attention may be less attractive than a lower-paying one that builds systems or assets in the background. Another sign is how they handle their schedule. Their calendars are not packed for the sake of appearing busy. In fact, they often intentionally leave space unstructured. This is not inefficiency, it is strategy. Unstructured time allows for thinking, planning, and making better long-term decisions rather than reacting to constant urgency. They also tend to avoid unnecessary financial or lifestyle commitments that lock their time. This includes avoiding debt that creates pressure to maintain a certain income level or avoiding lifestyle upgrades that increase ongoing obligations. Every decision is filtered through one question: does this increase or reduce my future freedom? Over time, this mindset creates a very different relationship with money. Instead of chasing more income purely for consumption, they aim for financial independence where work becomes optional rather than mandatory. This shift changes everything. Work is no longer driven by survival, but by choice. Interestingly, this often makes them appear less busy than others. But that lack of visible business is not inactivity, it is efficiency. They are not filling their time for the sake of it. They are protecting it for what actually matters: long-term stability, health, relationships, and strategic thinking. There is also a psychological difference here. People who value attention often measure success externally through likes, status, job titles, or how others perceive their lifestyle. People who value time measure success internally through autonomy, flexibility, and peace of mind, and that internal metric is far more stable. So, when you observe someone who is not constantly signaling success, not overly busy, and not chasing visibility, it does not necessarily mean they are doing less. In many cases, it means they have already shifted their focus from earning attention to owning their time. And in the long run, that is one of the strongest indicators of true financial freedom. One of the most consistent patterns among genuinely wealthy individuals is something surprisingly simple: they don't feel the need to show it. While society often associates wealth with visibility, luxury cars, branded clothing, social media displays, or constant upgrades, quietly wealthy people tend to move in the opposite direction. Their financial security is not something they perform, it is something they experience privately. At its core, broadcasting wealth is usually about external validation. It is the need to be seen as successful, to signal status, or to gain approval from others. But when someone has already achieved a strong level of financial stability, that need naturally diminishes. Their confidence is no longer dependent on perception because their financial reality speaks for itself. Instead of focusing on appearances, they focus on structure. Their attention is directed toward net worth, investments, cash flow, and long-term financial planning, not public impression. This is why their lifestyle often appears understated. What you see on the surface is rarely the full picture of what they own or control financially. Another key reason they avoid broadcasting wealth is security. Financial security and social exposure often move in opposite directions. The more visible someone's wealth becomes, the more they may attract unnecessary attention, whether that is social pressure, comparison, or even risk. Quiet wealth reduces this exposure. It creates a buffer between their financial reality and public perception. This is also linked to emotional discipline. People who feel the need to display wealth are often still emotionally tied to money as a form of identity. In contrast, quietly wealthy individuals tend to see money as a tool, not a statement. They don't use it to define themselves publicly because they already understand its private function, stability, freedom, and optionality. You will often notice that their consumption habits are intentionally neutral. They are not driven by trends or the need to signal status. A luxury item, if purchased, is usually for utility, longevity, or personal preference, not for visibility. In many cases, they prefer quality over recognition. What matters is how something serves their life, not how it is perceived by others. There's also a long-term mindset at play. Broadcasting wealth often creates short-term social reward, but long-term financial inefficiency. Constant upgrading, lifestyle inflation, and image maintenance can quietly drain resources that could otherwise be invested and compounded. Quiet wealth avoids this trap by prioritizing accumulation over appearance. Another important point is that many financially secure individuals actively choose discretion. The more private their finances are, the more control they retain. They are not influenced by public expectation or pressure to maintain a certain image. This gives them freedom to make decisions based purely on logic and personal goals, rather than social comparison. And perhaps the most interesting aspect is this: true wealth often becomes invisible because it no longer needs validation. When someone is secure in their financial position, they don't rely on external cues to feel successful. Their sense of stability comes from what they have built internally, assets, systems, and discipline, not from what they display externally. So, when you observe someone who is not actively showcasing success, it is easy to assume there is nothing significant behind the scenes. But in many cases, the opposite is true. The absence of display is not the absence of wealth. It is often a sign that wealth has already served its deeper purpose, creating quiet, stable, and sustained financial freedom.